Hey there, Anthony here. Welcome back to the channel. So we're about less than 1 month now from the Hot Rod Power Tour 2024, and I got my 71 Chevy Nova, which is my plan A. What I'm planning on taking on the tour with my son. He's 9. This will be our first power tour. We're planning on doing the long haul, uh, and it's 5 cities, 5 days. So just going through the car and trying to make sure everything is good to go and taking care of a few little things that I thought might be important before we go on the trip. So some of the things I knew I wanted to take care of before the trip were the rear tires are the Mickey Thompson drag radials, and they're pretty worn out. So I want to replace those. There might be a little situation with the idler pulley or tensioner or something with the accessory drives making kind of a weird random noise once in a while. I also want to get some seat time in the car. I haven't really driven it very much, so the first time I drove it to work was pretty eventful. It didn't really go the way I had hoped. It was not very smooth. So I got to work, no problem. I work about 30 minutes away. It's not a long trip. Got there, no problem. Coming home in the afternoon after work, and the guy in front of me was approaching the railroad tracks. As soon as the red light went on, he slammed on his brakes. Even though I was a good distance behind it, I was probably only going about 35. I slammed on my brakes, and the car locked up the brakes, and it was a little bit closer. Kind of scared me a little bit. So the car has manual brakes. Not something I'm used to. I never really had a car with manual brakes, so until I had to make that panic stop, I thought it was normal, but then I realized something was not right with the brakes, so I got to check into that. And then as I was getting closer to home, I noticed the temperature gauge started going up, and when I pulled in the driveway and I got out, I could see coolant was dripping on the ground, and I was like, oh great, now what? So I got to check out that coolant leak situation. Yeah, so I'm just trying to take care of all these things. I've only got a few weeks left to do it. So in this video, I'm going to hopefully take care of all those issues, and we'll see how everything works out. All right, so I think I could breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief here. Had to move a lot of things out of the way, like the coil bracket, etc., wires. I got the lower heater hose off. I don't know if this will focus, but right there is a hole. I think this is my whole leak situation right here. It's a very tight fit down here. I mean, I don't even know how they got that hose on there. Maybe it was before the engine was put in. It's kind of tight there, but yeah, so I'm just going to get a new heater hose, and it must have been rubbing on something which caused the leak. So see if I could try to shield it somehow. I mean, I doubt I could fit anything else in there. The hose pretty much takes up that entire space. But that should fix our coolant leak issue. Yeah, that really had me bummed out for about 24 hours. I thought I had a blown head gasket or a cracked head or something serious, but looks like it's just a hose. We got lucky on that one. All right, so this was tricky. I mean, the space back here between the heater core and the valve cover couldn't be any tighter. So I got a new 5/8 heater hose, which was the one that had the hole in it. I had to undo this bracket and remove this coil to get back there, but it's back on. And yeah, put everything back together, refilled the coolant. So now I'm going to test it out. I also put some of this stuff around the hose to try to protect it. Where the hole was, it's either getting pinched by the edge. I think it's getting pinched by the edge of the valve cover, just from the engine rocking or whatever. So it's probably going to happen again. Hopefully this will protect it a little bit. And yeah, so we'll see how long that lasts. The hose that was on there is dated 2018, it looks like. So 6 years or so it lasted. So we'll see what happens for this next round. Just going to start it up now. Check for leaks. All right, I've got it up hot. Ran it for a while. Everything's looking good now. All dry. No leaks. So check that off the list. Next thing gotta check is the brakes. Had a little scare the other day. Driving along, guy in front of me slams on the brakes. And man, I thought I was hitting this guy. I blocked up the wheels and just missed him by about 3 feet. So just gonna take a look at the brakes, check out the back brakes, make sure everything looks like it's working. See if I can see anything. Much as I suspected, no rear brakes. Let's see what's going on with that. Did a little research on the proportioning valve, which is down here, and as you can see, that test light is on. So what it's saying is if the proportioning valve is tripped, which means it's shutting off one side, which would be the rear, the light would come on when you've got the test light connected to 12 volts and then probed into the little connector there. So what they're saying to do is to pump the pedal 3 times and hold it. I doubt that's going to do anything, but I'll give it a try. Yeah, that didn't work. Right, so the next thing it said to do was to open a bleeder on the side that is working, which would be the front. So I did my little self-bleeder setup that I like to do, and just pumped it 1 time and light went out. So that should mean that the back brakes should be working. The whatever valve inside of there should be centered and reset. And close everything up and test it out. Fortunately, wasn't that easy. Still no brakes. I'll keep on checking. Light did not come back on. I don't get it. I don't get it. So you guys are gonna think I'm the dumbest guy on YouTube. Anyway, wasting all this time, ended up bleeding the rear brakes. Everything seemed fine, there was no air, the fluid was flowing. I'm like, why aren't these brakes working? And then I'm just like looking around under the car and I'm like, oh yeah, a line lock. And I'm like, duh, is the line lock? Could the line lock be on? Because that would kill the rear brakes. Sure enough, I go in, and this is the switch, which is easy to just flick forward, like with your leg or whatever. It's not the greatest place, but yeah, flick the switch off and now the brakes are working. So silly me. Yeah, these are the kind of things that happen when you're me. So I'm driving around now with 4 brakes working, and honestly, it doesn't seem all that different. I don't know. Never really had a car with manual brakes before. I don't know if this is the way it's supposed to feel. So I didn't get 100 feet. I've already got a problem. Something's scraping on this back wheel. Actually, it was coming from the passenger side. So the guy put the wheel weights here, and these are pretty thick compared to the ones that were on here before. I already pulled this one pulled it off. So it's scraping on the brake caliper right here. Oh man. I just massaged it down a little bit. Got some new double-sided tape, stuck that one back on. Everything clears now. Put a little paint on it. Never know the difference. Now the other side is even worse. I mean, look at this. Completely off. And then he's got these giant, and they're all loose. Like, I don't understand. Do these things just happen to me? Or is it everybody else too? I mean, I'm starting to feel like it's just me. Back on the driver's side, still rubbing right there on the caliper. If I had to take this down right along here, hopefully that's enough. I feel like I'm working for NASCAR today. The amount of times I've had these wheels off and on. So I've been dealing with this side for almost an hour now. Grinding. I've had the wheel off and on 6 times. Seems to be here. I'm at my wit's end. Like, I just don't think this is gonna work out. I'm ready to just give up. I mean, if I have to, I'll bring them back and I'll get the metal weights, because this shit is just not worth the effort. This is just ridiculous. Still slightly scraping, but I'm done. Painted it up, and it's very minor now, so hopefully it'll just self-clearance. Trying to track down that random rattling noise coming from the front. So I got the belt off of the tensioner. I mean, it's not crazy, but I do hear a noise there. Thinking that that shouldn't make any noise. Anyway, the water pump, pretty quiet. Everything makes a little bit of a noise. Sounds kind of normal for an alternator. This one is silent. And then there's the power steering. So I had to go back to SK Speed to get some oil filter, and a few other things for the Nova. And while I was there, Colin noticed that the ICT idler pulley had sort of a groove in it, which also wore a bit of a groove in the Serpentine belt. So I'm going to be looking to replace those two items as well. So I was thinking for the trip, instead of having just this open thing on here, it'd be better to get an actual filter. Even doing like 2,400 miles. So I'm just stopped off at SK on the way to work, and we'll see if this actually fits in here. This awesome thing just pulling next to me. Definitely on my bucket list to get one of those. Similar color. Similar interior too. So initially it did not fit. This corner was hitting the core support, but we trimmed it back. We trimmed a little bit off of this lip here, and now it just clears. I found the idler pulley, the ICT billet, and they have a website, but then I also looked on Amazon and they had the same thing from ICT billet, same price, free shipping, came the next day. And then Amazon also had the other one, the one with the groove in it, and pretty cheap too. This one was 25. I think this one was maybe 15 or 17, and then got the belt. I'll put the new belt on, and I will keep the old one as a spare. So I have the new ICT pulley is on. This is the old one. Very simple. 1/2-inch bolt. There's a 15mm nut on the back side. So this one's ready to go. The other side, 3 bolts to take the idler pulley out. It's like a bracket and a pulley. And this was really close to that exhaust pipe, so there was no way of getting a socket on here. So I'm gonna use, I got it in the vise, I'm gonna use the impact. Hopefully that'll do it. So today I'm working like a civilized person for a change. I've got my tool cart out, which is usually buried back there with all kinds of stuff on it, so I can't use it. But I'm usually working like an animal because I've got all the tools like on the fender cover, on various places on the car, everything's usually falling on the floor and it gets very aggravating. So this is the better way to do it. The little washer that was on the idler pulley, it was like looking pretty bad rusty, so I just went with my new favorite Ace Rust Stop satin black. Just gonna let that dry a few minutes and then impact that back on. Nice and quiet. So the old Daco belt, made in USA. The new one, same part number, Daco, made in China. All back together. seems good. So thanks for watching this video. There's still some more things I want to do to the car before we hit the power tour. There's no radio. There's a AM factory radio that doesn't work. I want to add some speakers. Another thing is the transmission. It works great, but there's no transmission temperature gauge. I know it has a 10-inch higher stall converter. I just want to make sure that on a long road trip that the fluid doesn't get too hot, or when I'm stuck in traffic. There's a transmission cooler underneath the car, and it doesn't have a cooling fan or anything, so it's going to strictly rely on airflow while the car is moving. So I'm not sure how that will operate when we are stuck in traffic, which is inevitable getting into venues on the power tour.